The following story has been brought to you by StoriesToInspire.org.
There's a shocking story that took place once in the town of Mirrer in Europe. And the guy Reb Shloime Shimshon Karelitz said over this story that transpired when he learned in the Mirrer. He said, there was once very late at night, and a group of Bachurim was going from the Yeshiva back to their stanzia. That was the apartment that they stayed in. They referred to them as stanzias. In those days, it wasn't like today that there was lighting in the streets. It was pitch dark, and a group of boys was walking in the street, and suddenly they hear running. When they heard running, they were convinced that it must be Ganovim and Gazlonim that were running to try to find some people who they could accost. So the Bachurim decided, we better start running too. So they began to run toward their apartment. Muddy streets, there weren't paved streets, and they were running toward their apartment. And the more they ran, the more they hear the footsteps behind them running faster. They come running to their apartment. They manage to get the key in the door. They open it up. They get inside. They shut the door. And a few moments later, there's big bangs on the door. Police, open up. They had no Mirrer. So they opened the door, and the police said, you should know, you just experienced a miracle. You had an S. We told you to stop. We were screaming at you to stop running. Not only told you to stop, you started running faster. You should know, we don't even know why. We didn't shoot at you. You were getting ready to shoot at you. And the police said, I want to have from all of you papers to show that you're legal. Now, they all had papers because they all stayed in that apartment, except for Reb Shloime Shimshon Karelitz. He didn't live in that apartment. He lived in another apartment. That's where he had his papers. So the policeman said, we want to see your papers. We'll accompany you to your apartment. Show them to us. They went to his apartment, Baruch's apartment, showed him the paper, and he saw that he was telling the truth. They let him go. That was the end of that story. I can imagine they were choshev b'Bachurim, maybe there was only a little hack, but it could have been hack. Such a mice, chasing, we ran, he got scared, Baruch Hashem, tried to be the police, almost got shot. I had such a story also. I was in England, and a fellow came over to me, and he said to me, do you mind taking a suitcase back to my sister in Yerushalayim? I just came from her, I borrowed a suitcase from her. Could you mind taking it back? I said, no, I don't mind. What do I mind? I said, what's in it? He said, nothing. Some ladies' stockings. I said, okay, what's it? I took the suitcase. It was like very empty. And then when I went back on the plane to take the last leg of my trip from London, from to Yisroel, I gave the suitcase in. Hours later, when I got off the plane, I forgot about it. And I got out of the airport, and I got to a taxi, one of those 7-passenger taxis. They took my suitcase and he started tying it on the roof. And all of a sudden I realized, oh no, I'm ashamed of that suitcase. I forgot about it. I was negligent. What should I do? So Yetzirah told me, forget about it. Forget about it. You know what I mean? Nothing in it. What are you supposed to do now? And there's a show of no such thing. It's not like America. You can go back and meet somebody. Could get my suitcase? Sir, once you get out of that airport, you can't get back into that airport. So I decided, no, I'm going to listen to my Yetzer Tov. So the Eretz Yisrael, the way it works is there's a big room where everybody comes through the customs, and the doors open up. There's one green door and a red door. So I waited till the green door opened up, and I charged straight into the customs hall. It's just a little, thing. I ran to where the carousel was, got the suitcase right away, turned around, and ran straight out. And I ran to where the cab was, and suddenly I feel something sticking in my back, something was sticking against my head, and the guys looking at me who had their mouths open like this. And I looked around. These guys with drawn guns. They weren't wearing uniforms. And they started saying, "Put your hands up. What's this? What's that?" I forgot the suitcase. I was like, American. I didn't take it that serious, And I give me the suitcase. He said, "We could have shot you. We would have shot you. We don't know why we didn't shoot you." I said, "Baruch Hashem, he didn't shoot me." So the guy, they opens the suitcase. There's nothing in it. They were convinced I had jewels there. They were knocking on the handle. They were checking the drugs in the bottom of the suitcase, turning it over. They were all being ma'ayin in it. I said, "There's nothing in it, just ladies' stockings." It says nothing. It's not really here. There's nothing mamish. They first were real angry, then they toned it down, and they said, "Dangerous, don't ever do that." I said, "I won't do it again." The Kitzer, now I had a problem because the cab had 6 places in it, and the best seat in that cab was the front seat. It sat next to the driver. That was a single seat. The seats behind were two rows, but there were 3 across, so it wasn't so comfortable. They told me to go in the back, in the middle. Driver comes out of the car, he says, "Habibi," goes over to the front of the car, goes to the guy sitting next to him, he says, "Get out of the seat." Tells the guy, "This man is sitting next to me. Who give it? He's a man. You see, he just pulled the wool over all those police's eyes? That's the man. He's sitting next to me." The kid, he tells me, "Get out of the car." The guy starts to moan and groan. He says, "Get in the car." I sit down in the seat next to the guy. Before we get out of the airport, he leans over and he says, "Habibi," he said, "Between me and you, tell me, what'd you have there? What'd you have there?" I said, "I'll take you to Afachat. That don't tell a person." He said, "Okay, I need." I said, "Ladies' stockings." He said, "How's that?" He didn't know English. Adem Gerbayim Shel Nashim. You know what that is? It's called hose in America. They call it hose. He was going crazy. You're such a wise guy. You fooled everybody. Don't fool me. Tell me the truth. And a whole trip, the guy was making me mishuga. "What did you have there?" As we get out of the car, he walked me into my apartment. Yerushalayim. So I'm asking you one more time. He said, "People like you succeed because you don't talk." So, Baruch Hashem made it out safe from that story. But it's scary. B'kitzer, the next day this hack came on to Yerushalayim in the Mirrer Yeshiva. I cannot believe what happened after that. Rabbi Yeruchem Levovitz, the mashgiach in the Mirrer, first made an appointment with the ruling rabbanim of the Mirrer Yeshiva. And he told them, "I reached a decision after what happened last night. I'm closing down the yeshiva." Get it? Now, that day was a day where he said his weekly shmuas in the yeshiva. Rabbi Yeruchem got standing up there, looked very serious, and he said, "I want to tell you the emes. Because of a terrible thing that happened last night in the yeshiva with a few bachrim, I weighed back and forth, and I discussed it with the rabbanim of the yeshiva, and I decided we're closing down the Mirrer." Could you imagine closing down the Mirrer? The Mirrer was palace of Torah. No came forward from the Mirrer. And he said, "What's the shot? You're wondering why?" And everybody got all nervous in the shmuz. They didn't know what he wanted. Why is he closing the door? Because such a story last night. Maybe koch nefesh, they shouldn't have run. They didn't know why. He said over the whole story. And he said, "How was it shaykh that the bacharim from the first apartment let Reb Shloime Shimshon Karelitz go alone in the dark with those Goyish policemen, alone, without accompanying him, back to his apartment? Besides for the sakana that they put this guy in. Could you imagine the pachad that bacher must have had walking alone with the police? They didn't care about his pachad. Besides, they endangered his life. Let's say I feel there was no endangerment to life. But to alleviate his pachad, they should have gone along with him. And he said, The whole entire Torah is not worth a thing without Midas Torahs. I'm telling you, Yeruchem used to say that in Slabodka, the Alter from Slabodka gave a shmooze for 6 months, constantly, about one thing, about Midas. And I thought about that story. That Rabbi Yeruchem touched it up, that was Midas Reis. It came from bad Midas. And bad Midas, ganze Torah is nothing worth. This is a most serious offense.
Enjoyed this story? Come again. Bring a friend. StoriesToInspire.org